Attention everyone, vaccines cause autism. The ingredients are way worse than the actual disease. Don't vaccinate your kids. Let them get the measles. They'll be stronger for it. That sounds a little absurd because vaccines either cause autism or harm your health. And today I'm going to tell you why. A lot of controversy has recently risen around our ability to eradicate diseases and properly vaccinate diseases. And we have had huge outbreaks of measles in some states and schools where children are not being vaccinated. So according to the CDC, over the past decade, it's been drastically more cases of the measles, mumps, and chickenpox versus back in the early 2000s when we really started vaccinating for these things and making sure that all the children were vaccinated for these things. So while most of the population still vaccinates, it's really surprising to most people that the ones in danger of contracting these diseases are not the people who are vaccinated, and they're not the people who are healthy. So although my child is vaccinated and your child is not, it doesn't mean that my child will get it if yours has it. My child's healthy. We're mostly worried about newborns or children who are not old enough to receive vaccines, because you get vaccines mostly from birth up through 3 to 5 years of age, depending on how your pediatrician spaces it out. And then the elderly people who are more susceptible to diseases probably did not get some of these vaccinations in the first place. And those whose immune systems are so compromised, like if you have HIV, AIDS, cancer, or any type of autoimmune disease, they can contract those diseases, and vaccinations are not good enough for them. So, first, vaccines do not cause autism, and it is very, very sad that people are more afraid of mental illness in their children than they are having a potentially deadly disease. So it's been stated previously that there was a link between autism and vaccinations. However, that doctor has admitted to fabricating evidence and lost his license. Vaccines are typically administered in early childhood. Autism presents those, but if that really caused autism, then more people who were vaccinated would have autism. And new studies have also shown that there's no link between the two, but that autism is more genetic factors and environment. Even though there's no concrete evidence as to what actually causes autism, it just sort of presents itself around the age of 3 to 5. Okay. So now that we have debunked this, let's look at our next point, herd immunity. So a lot of people talk about herd immunity and how, well, if all of you are safe, then my one child won't affect you. But you can. So herd immunity, according to vaccines.gov, is pretty much saying that if all of us get vaccinated, then diseases cannot spread as fast as what they normally would. So it protects our communities, but also those people who are susceptible, like we talked about earlier with cancer and HIV. And vaccines.gov and the CDC have also stated that it's important to be vaccinated before you travel, as people in these other countries do not have access to vaccinations. They're poor, they don't believe in them, they don't take them. So that's where a lot of our unvaccinated people are getting those diseases. They're traveling without vaccinations, bringing it back to us, not necessarily starting here in the US. Okay, so this is our last point. Vaccines can potentially eradicate diseases. So even though diseases aren't completely eradicated, you drastically see a reduction in numbers when everyone is vaccinated. So polio, huge in the 1950s. People living in iron lungs and things like that, but then once we got these vaccinations, it essentially dropped off of the earth in America, or where these vaccines were given. So the number of deaths From smallpox, worldwide, 5 million people died from smallpox. But had they been vaccinated, they may not have died. Measles, 2.7 million worldwide deaths. And this is worldwide, so though we've only had like maybe 50 cases in the United States since 1996, everyone's vaccinated. You go to a third world country, they don't have it, and the diseases like measles and smallpox and diphtheria and all that run like rampant because they can't control them. And once so many people have it, it's so hard to get rid of it. So, in conclusion, remember, vaccines do not cause autism, herd immunity helps our communities, and vaccines drastically reduce the number of outbreaks. So, I also want you to think about this. In 2010, 200,000 cases of the measles were reported worldwide, 63 in the United States. In the past decade, more and more parents have stopped vaccinating, and that number went up to 372 last year. So we've nearly quadrupled or more what we have. So you should vaccinate yourself and your children to help outweigh the risks of getting a vaccination. Thank you. Are there any questions?